Good afternoon. I'm Dennis Galucki. Welcome to the 542nd Imagine Buffalo program and our 164th Imagine Greater Buffalo program, hosted by our Buffalo and Erie County Public Library and now on YouTube. We're so glad you've joined us today. This program is created by the Center for the Study of Art, Architecture, History, and Nature, and imaginelifelonglearning.com. Now, before we get started, a little housekeeping. Everyone watching will be muted and your video turned off. If you have a question or comment, please type it into the chat box and we'll go through them at the end of the presentation. We are recording this program so you can watch it again later on the Downtown Central Library's Facebook page and their YouTube channel. And please, we certainly hope you share the link with others. Now on to our featured speaker. Laurie Ousley is president of Gardens Buffalo Niagara and a longtime avid gardener who has developed a passion for ecological gardening. She fell in love with Buffalo and the region's burgeoning passion for gardening when she came to attend the University of Buffalo in 1997. Laurie serves on the Lunenfeld Beautification Grants Committee and the Volunteer Coordination Committee. And she also launched GBN's Conservation Day at the Elmwood Farmers Market. Well, a busy person and somebody very much involved in the garden walk experience that we've all come to love here in Buffalo. Welcome, Laurie. Please take it away.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the invitation. One of the things in my life that I am most proud of, it's my involvement with Gardens Buffalo Niagara. And like, you just mentioned, I went to my first garden walk, a week or so after I moved to Buffalo, and knew I had come to a very magical place. So this is really important to me for so many reasons. But I'd like to tell you first a little bit about Gardens Buffalo Niagara. Our mission is to create more vibrant and beautiful communities by sharing gardens. Very simple. Our vision is to help create beautiful gardens in every corner of our city and region, connecting neighbors and inspiring visitors. We know that we have thousands of people every year travel from all over the US and Canada and beyond to visit the gardens of Buffalo Niagara. We're all about gardens and beautification. We know that gardens and garden tourism have a tremendous impact on our area. We know that collectively our gardens support the environmental health and habitat of the Buffalo Niagara region here in the watershed of the Great Lakes. I'm going to I'm going to try to share my screen, which I was able to do a second ago. So here we go. All right. All right, here we go. So Garden Walk Buffalo. This is the event that started it all 30 years ago. This is our 30th anniversary, which is really astonishing. Garden Walk Buffalo was started by Marvin Lunenfeld and Gail McCarthy. They were inspired by a small garden tour they saw in Chicago. They came home and they convinced their neighbors to open up their gardens, for tourists, mostly from the city, from the neighborhood and, from the immediate suburbs, likely. And it was small. There were just 29 gardens that first year. We know Garden Walk to be quite big and have quite an enormous footprint. But in 2024, it was weird to open up your gardens, your backyard to complete strangers. And it was an odd request, but everybody went along with it. And each year it grew. So it began with 29 gardens. And then each year it got a little bit larger, spread a little bit more organically. And the reason this started, which I think is important, because we don't remember this now necessarily, is that the city was not the Elmwood Village wasn't the affluent place we know it as now. It was daring for folks to go into the city, but the folks who opened their gardens, the folks who participated in those first years, really had a great deal of pride in their neighborhoods, in their homes, and their gardens, and they really wanted to bring people into that. And I think it's worth remembering that, because if we can remember where we've been, we can really be daring in where we go. So the region now, Garden Walk has obviously expanded, as I said. It's become a much larger place over the last the past many years. The footprint is gigantic. It expanded the last time in 2019 when it came into my neighborhood, which is Parkside and the Park Meadow neighborhood. So the footprint is really quite large now. But that is new. I thought we could look at some of the posters, because they also give us an idea of where we've been. You can see, that it's really beautiful, actually, very simple. But that's what it was in the first year. This is the 5th year, the 6th year, the 7th year. So you can see we still have similar color schemes. The image is similar, but it's not what we think of now when we think of Garden Walk posters and Garden Walk art, because now we have a competition for those, for the poster, and that goes on to the merchandise we sell. So you can see that we've moved into a different sort of art. Still the lilies. I chose these two because I know that you are interested in architecture. Not all of our posters include, built structures. Many of them are plants or single flowers, but these have built structures in them. Here are the flowers. This is our 25th anniversary, and then last year's poster. And these are some of, I thought you might want to like to see some of the more unusual posters, that use different media, different imagery. This one I'm showing because it is the only one that is a horizontal image. All of the others are, upright. And this is this year's poster. This one is a collage, and this is the first collage that we have had. So I saw Jim Charlier is here viewing this. I wanted to show the folks who made Garden Walk. So Garden Walk Buffalo was very small. It was like I said, it was very much a neighborhood event. But then in 2010, I believe it was, we had our first folks pulling together what was the National Garden Festival. And the National Garden Festival was the first iteration of what is now Gardens Buffalo Niagara. And these are our 3 founders. So Sally Cunningham, a prolific garden writer locally. Jim Charlier, who does all of our graphic work. He's designed the maps, he's designed the books. All of our imagery really comes to Jim's talents and his devotion to the organization. And then you have Ed Healy. He has the butterfly on his shoulder. This is one of his favorite pictures. He just now retired from Visit Buffalo Niagara. He is the vice president of marketing. And he brought Jim and Sally in to form what was known as the National Garden Festival. And that's when that is how kind of Garden Walk Buffalo became the beginning of everything, right? So these folks came together and brought the gardening organizations and gardening fanatics together into the same place and built more. So here are some images of Garden Walk Buffalo. I thought we should start with Garden Walk Buffalo, and everybody wants to see some of these images. This is Little Summer Street, one of our most popular sections of Garden Walk. There's another image there. This is on Franklin, I believe. One of the games I always play with myself is just trying to remember which garden is which, just from random pictures. You can see that these gardens are all very different, and they're all have, some are focused entirely on plants. Some have these remarkable structures. So they don't need to be, and I think this is really important, the gardens don't need to be, there's no competition involved. It really is just a celebration of what folks have and the spaces that they have and the spaces that they love. Some folks depend entirely, on the plants and, pots of plants or vines growing up their walls. And that's fantastic. And that's really, and if that is what you love, that we love to have you share it. It's the love and the sharing really that keep this all moving. This is a pretty famous garden for a long time on Delavan. The homeowners used to dress in period costume to welcome folks to their gardens. I chose this one for the architecture too, because I know you're interested in that. And this is just a space between two garages, right? Very common around here. But it's remarkable what you can do between two garages if you have the vision. I included this one because I found these steps very inspiring myself. So if you come to my garden this summer, you will see that I'm trying to train like these little these plants like along my steps on the side of my house. My front stairs and my back stairs are both on the side, and I'm trying to get the plants to grow there. This is actually, and I don't, Arlen Peters and Dom DiFilippo, who were very important early Garden Walk Buffalo volunteers and leaders. This is their backyard. The next thing that came out of, or the second thing, or second event, sorry, that was introduced out of Garden Walk Buffalo was the garden art sale. You saw in a lot of those pictures of gardens that people, decorate their gardens in really interesting ways here, using all kinds of things, repurposing really all kinds of things. There's a garden that has those pink flamingos all over, like, 100 pink flamingos. You saw that the giant sphere in the back of that Linwood garden, really one of the famous structures on our garden walk now. But with teacups, with creating like little bird baths out of impressions, concrete impressions from hosta leaves, for instance. You can make art from anything, and people really do. So we have this garden art sale. It's always in the last week of June. It's now at the Botanical Gardens, and in this image you can see the Botanical Gardens in the back. And this year, our garden art sale is going to be considerably larger than it has been, thanks in large part to the efforts of Jim Charlier, who I keep calling out on this presentation. The next new event that we began was Open Gardens, and these are gardens that are open all over the region. So Buffalo Niagara, I think I'm down into Cattaraugus County, a very large space. And these gardens are the more, all of these are vetted. They're really spectacular. And I think we're going to be in our 12th year, maybe 13th for this one. So they're open throughout July on Thursdays and Fridays. These are some images. And you can open, this is the only event that we charge in any way for, but what we're selling is the Open Gardens Guide. And this gives you, it just tells you where all of these gardens are. It also has the entire calendar for all of the garden walks in our region for the summer. So it has the entire calendar. And this is an image of Mike Shadrack, one of the founders of Open Gardens, which really is based on a program they have in the UK. Mike is from the UK, and he has a book. I should have had an image in here, but he is he literally wrote the book on hostas. And if you find the book on hostas, you will see him, and you will see an introduction by then Prince Charles. So this is him and his in Smug Creek, the gardens in Hamburg. And this is another image from those gardens. You can see that they're at an entirely different scale. This is Beth Kreitzer's garden in Cheektowaga. She's an open garden as well. She is famous for having a fire-breathing dragon over the gate of her garden, which I really should have included an image of, and I apologize for not. But you can see the scale of these is really different, and that they really are dramatic gardens. So if that is to your taste, there are gardens on the shore of the lake, on creeks. This is Jim's garden. I keep talking about Jim. Jim is really essential to Gardens Buffalo Niagara in so many ways. And he also has the most famous garden shed in the country, which he designed and built himself. And you can see it's based on the architecture of his home. This is a garden. This is a home with a pretty spectacular garden. The front is very formal, and this is in Snyder. We also started the Eastside Garden Walk. The first Eastside Garden Walk was in 2018. It began first before it became a more formal walk. It started as bus tours. Mary Van Voorst organized these bus tours, which were very popular. And then more formalized it, and it became the East Side Garden Walk, opening its for the first time in 2018. Oh, these are, it's the 20th and the 21st. I apologize. These are last year's dates. And these are some of the gardens on the East Side Garden Tour. There's some features of the gardens. And every one of the garden walks has very happy people, even when it's pouring. The first day of Garden Walk Buffalo last year, we had umbrella. We were selling umbrellas. We sold all of our umbrellas because it was pouring that day, but it didn't stop anybody from coming. One of our newer events is Conservation Day. We do this as part of the farmers market on Bidwell Parkway. And we bring conservation organizations together, in one place. The day culminates in a butterfly release. We have all the butterflies. Easton Monarch Butterfly Farm is our partner for that project. And Dave O'Donnell does the butterfly release with us. One of the things that we're doing with this event is bringing the gardeners together with the conservation organizations All of our gardens, regardless of how small or their style, contribute to local ecology and habitat, provide habitat in this region. And this region is really important. The environmentally is really, really important. It's a major migratory pathway, for instance, for birds and butterflies. But it, you know, and we're in the watershed of the Great Lakes. So it is really important ecologically. And what we're doing here is bringing the gardeners together with the conservationists. And you can see the butterflies are fantastic. Our very newest event is Urban Farm Day. And Urban Farm Day, we're highlighting, you know, the urban farms of the area. Most of them are in Buffalo. We have at least one in Tonawanda, but they're primarily in Buffalo. And the farmers have all kinds of things open for folks. Farmer Pirates is going to be there on Urban Farm Day this year, and they teach about composting. Excuse me, and they, you know, they'll show you around the farms and what it means to compost and such. We have folks, you can buy produce, of course. We have folks making pizzas. We have instruction about hydroponics, all kinds of things. It's a really fantastic event. And it's really great to kind of know where food comes from, of course. These are some images of the farms. So I thought I would conclude because I think I'm going too long, and you promised to interrupt me when I started to do that. So this is an overview of our whole season, the 2024 season. So we're kicking off this season. You know, we've given away our grants and such already. I'll tell you a second about the grants. But we're kicking off our very public season with a big party to celebrate the 30th anniversary. It's going to be at the Foreman Mansion. We're going to have hors d'oeuvres and drinks and different kinds of beverages. We're going to have a string quartet from the Buffalo Philharmonic, a basket raffle, and we're going to be giving out the as a gift the Garden Walk Buffalo at 30, a new magazine that we're publishing for this year. The first place that will be available is at the party. We will be selling it through our website, through at Garden Art Sale, and through all of our event headquarters throughout the season. And you can get tickets for the event at gardensbuffaloniagara.com. So this, and this is an image of the garden that we will be in for this party. It's also on the Open Gardens, the Open Gardens event. But this is an Ellen Biddle Shipman designed garden. She's really cool. She was a landscape architect in the 1930s. She, you know, business owner, hired mainly women to work for her business. Really interesting person. This is her. And I do want to say thank you so much to those who, Stephen Dietz and Eric Stenslick, who are our hosts for the event and have given us access, you know, offered us their home and garden for the event and have brought us the music. And our caterer and in-kind sponsor, Michael Helmicki. We're really looking forward to this event. We'd love to have folks come and join us. One more thing that I do want to mention, and I promise I'll stop talking then. The Lunenfeld Beautification Grant Program. This is named for Marvin Lunenfeld, one of the founders who I mentioned very early on. And we began offering the Lunenfeld grants in 2004. And it was just a few $1,000s a year at first. It was funded entirely by the sales of merchandise, you know, and donations. You know, and everything went toward, paying to keep everything free, so maps and such. But then all of the proceeds, what was left of them, went toward funding this program. And for a long time, it was just for the footprint of the garden walk. But now in 2019, we expanded it to the entire city. We're really proud of that expansion. And we now give considerably more out every year. And these are just some of our really great folks who are volunteers, and some of the gardens that have benefited from our Lunenfeld program. And we always want volunteers. If anybody ever wants to volunteer, we really want you to have you. We could have volunteers on our board. We could have volunteers for the days of the events. Somebody wants to be treasurer, anything. If you have something that you want to lend to us, we want to hear it. And I'm just going to scroll through our sponsors, and then I really will be quiet. Oh, and you see the Center for the Study of Art, Architecture, History, and Nature is one of our supporting sponsors. And these are just our sponsors, without whom we could not do this.
Wow.
So thank you.
Laurie, thank you. It's dessert for the eyes, I'll tell you, to see this annual program, and each one has been different, and you've added a whole different dimension. Especially appreciated the posters and the history of that. Nice to mark on a 30th anniversary like you're doing, and show literally by way of the art of the poster to show the progression of 30 years. I've been privileged to help support this for the 15 years that C-SAAHN has existed as a digital enterprise. But because if you want to see art, architecture, history, and nature, just walk around Buffalo. But you give us a reason, at least on that last weekend in July to start with, and now expanded beyond that, to walk around Buffalo and just be amazed at the beauty of the buildings, the interaction of the buildings with the landscape, with the gardens, nature itself. You have a sense of the history of the area just by seeing the building styles, and also you put it all together for me as create the opportunity to really emphasize art, architecture, history, and nature. And I thank you for including a few of the architecture shots with us in mind like that. So one other point I've always thought that this is America's largest free garden walk. And I'm just wondering, A, is that accurate? And B, is it possible you are the world's largest free garden walk?
It is accurate, or at least that is our understanding. We're the largest free garden walk of this nature in the country, and perhaps in the world. We have never heard otherwise. So if you hear otherwise, I want to know.
Well, and this is in part, you mentioned Ed Healy, and I was at the Preservation Buffalo Niagara Awards dinner on Thursday, in which he received the award, and he certainly pointed to the garden walk experience as well as one of his highlights during his career here. And I'm sure he'll stay very much involved if at all possible. So how are we doing for questions here? I'm sure we've got a few gardeners in the audience that have some questions for you.
Yep, our first question is, what kind of art is found at your art market? Any wind chimes, things like that?
Oh, anything you could possibly imagine, and then some, and then additional things. Like, so we definitely have wind chimes. Different kinds of pots and sculptures and trellises and things like that. But every year there's at least something I could never have imagined that is offered there. you know, it's really anything. It's remarkable. You know, there's I don't know. I mean, people make things. People make, you know, the really cool birdhouses made, you know, decorated with corks. Lots made of metal sculptures. Really cool wind sculptures like that move in the wind. All kinds of things, and honestly, a lot of things that you'd never imagine. And then you get there and you're like, wow, that's really cool. Yeah. It's definitely worth going. It is absolutely worth the trip.
Just to see the items for sale, perhaps.
Yeah. Yeah.
To see them all.
Yeah. And we have a band and we have food trucks. It's really an event.
Good.
It's
And you said it's
fantastic.
expanded this year. It'll be
Yeah.
larger. But again, repeat the dates on that, and also the location is the Botanical Gardens.
The location is the lawn of the Botanical Gardens. It's always the last weekend in June. So if you always have the last weekend in June in mind, you will find us. And because we are always there. And it really is quite an event. And it's almost doubled in size this year, for this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Melissa, any others?
Speaking about the garden walk, if someone wants to get their house or their place of business on the registry, how do they go about doing that?
We put out a call beginning in February. This is a massive undertaking. We actually, so just so you know, we meet all year to plan this. And we put out the call for gardens or for anyone to participate for both Eastside Garden Walk and Garden Walk Buffalo. We put that call out in February. And the closing date is May 15th. We almost always extend it for a few days, but you know, so by now we're in the middle of completing this map. So if you really want to participate and some of your neighbors are participating, some folks just call and ask for a sign. I have a couple of neighbors, so I'm always delivering a sign to every year. But you just call, you just you know, sign, you go to our website, you answer one of our appeals on social media, and you fill in the form, and then you are on it. That's all it takes.
Thank you. Those were the questions that we received.
Great.
Thank you. Laurie, to me, this was primarily volunteers, and C-SAAHN in its mission statement, it's about connecting volunteers and lifelong learning communities, and it's volunteers that are always engaged in lifelong learning. Just what they're doing. They define lifelong learning at a level. Is it still primarily volunteers? Are there many staff people at all, paid staff?
We have one paid staff person who works 10 hours a week, but it's army of volunteers. We have just a whole lot of people who love the city, love the gardens, love Garden Walk, and just really love participating. And I can say it is the nicest, most generous group of people that you will ever be involved with. It is fantastic. Lifelong friends are made through these gardens and these events.
Like-minded people, you know, sharing their thoughts and sharing their time and passion. And as you pointed out, in 1994, when you began, not a lot of people would have probably felt comfortable in most cities letting people wander around their side yards, backyards, front yards. And there you were inviting people were doing just that. And then setting a standard to almost invite the next door neighbor to them to say, you know, fix up your garden and you too can be part of it. And one garden at a time change the west side. And I believe it's going to help change the east side as well because of your efforts.
Yeah, that's the idea. I mean, if you're out in your front yard, you get to know your neighbors. You know, you have something that's, I don't know, the foxglove is in bloom right now. Maybe you have too many, you give one to your neighbor. it really does. It's about community more than anything else. It's about community and neighborhoods, and just, building connections with other people. And that it is all from the gardens. The gardens are center, but they're like, very central. None of this would have happened if people didn't just love their gardens and gardening. But it really is what brings all of the people together in this
All right, wonderful.
fantastic, fantastic community.
Well, again, thank you for the presentation, the images. I'm sure this video will be one of our popular in the world of YouTube as it gets sent around to the community, and deservedly so. Also mention that event you were inviting everybody to, a special fundraiser event.
Oh, that is the 30th anniversary gala. We're calling it Gather in the Garden. And that will be June 20th, the summer solstice, at the Foreman Mansion, the Ellen Biddle Shipman restored gardens there. And there aren't that many, Gray Cliff is an Ellen Biddle Shipman garden. The Knox Farm was Ellen Biddle Shipman designed, but there aren't that many restored for her gardens still in the country, because they're, it's labor intensive to maintain a garden over 100 years. Wow. And so the garden itself is special, but the event will be a really special one as well. And we'll be celebrating the 30th anniversary of Garden Walk Buffalo, and all of the people who have contributed to it for all of those 30 years. We'd love to have everybody come.
And it's open to everybody. That's what I want to emphasize. And they can find information on your website, I assume?
It is open to everybody. Tickets are available through our website.
Perfect. Perfect. Laurie, thank you again. Well done. Well done.
Thank you.
And folks, thank you for joining us today. We hope you'll be back with us next Tuesday as we hear from Michael Ball, Vice President of Community Affairs at Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield of Western New York, one of your sponsors, indeed.
Yes, indeed.
For the Garden Walk. They do a great job. Looking forward to hearing from Michael Ball. In the meantime, I'm Dennis Galucki. Be well and good day.